everyone, and welcome to Pop Screen, part of the Geek Show Podcast Network. We are the Geek Show podcast dedicated to the good, the bad, and the befuddling of movies, either starring, about, or by pop stars. No, the podcast covers such a broad range of musical and cinematic genres, from country and western to science fiction, from documentaries to... I've mixed my musical and cinematic genres up. From country and western to science fiction, from documentaries to hip-hop. Two things that are exactly in the same category. Yep, that works. Fuck it, let's go. I'm your host, Graham Williamson. I'm a filmmaker and a film critic for The Geek Show and Horrified.com, the British horror website. I'm also on Letterboxd at Graham Williamson, and I write inlay booklets for Second Run. This week, I've been joined by...
Hi, I'm Sarah Hayton, and I'm a writer and director.
Indeed.
And friend
yes.
of Graham's.
Yeah, I very rarely invite my enemies on. Maybe I should. It could be interesting.
It would make for an interesting sparring.
Absolutely, yeah.
Section match, yeah, I reckon.
And of course, if you meet people who are incredibly temperamental and difficult towards you, you might end up falling in love, as today's film more than ably proves. This is Moonstruck. It's the 1987 film by Norman Jewison that stars Cher and Nicolas Cage, two great tastes that taste great together. And for me, this is kind of the nightmare situation with podcasting, where you watch a film and at the end of it, you think, that was really nice. And then the cold sweat descends on you and you think, how am I going to get an hour out of really nice? How does that work?
Oh, we've got plenty to talk about.
Oh, good. I thought this is why I was happy to have you on, because I know that if all else fails, we do often just go completely off the subject, and I'm very comfortable with that this time.
Yeah, I am tangent woman. So, yes. Have you seen this film before?
Never.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to think if I've seen any of Norman Jewison's other films before as well. I'm sure I must have, but
I'm not sure what his films are either. Let's have a look.
Oh well, I've seen In the Heat of the Night.
Oh
so
yeah,
there's something.
Is that they call me Mr. Tibbs?
That's the one. Yes.
Yes.
I didn't realise his career went back this far. Actually, I'd always filed him away as a kind of an 80s Oscar habitué like Sidney Pollack or someone like that. But yeah, it goes back all the way back to the original Thomas Crown Affair.
All right. Oh, that's a great film.
Let's
have a look. Thomas Crown. Fiddler on the Roof. Jesus Christ Superstar. Oh, he's done a few big ones, hasn't he?
He has,
Goodness of God. In Country. Other People's Money. I've definitely seen that back in the day. Oh, The Hurricane. Okay.
It's not
the
a bad
thrill
record.
Of it all. Oh my God, that's Doris Day. I love the thrill of it all. Oh my goodness, that one.
I am not familiar with the thrill of it all, though it clearly has thrilled you entirely.
It's so good. It's so good. Okay, so Doris Day plays this housewife whose husband, I think, is a surgeon and is probably, what do you call him, Rockford? James Garner.
Oh, James Garner, yes.
I think, if I remember it rightly. And she sort of randomly gets interviewed, and she talks about the soap that she uses, Happy Soap. And they like her so much because she's very natural and an adorable housewife that they decide to make her the face of Happy Soap. Right. And the thrill of it all is about her sort of rising fame in that role, and it's just charming. It's a charming film, and she has the kids, and it's like cute. And James Garner's like, oh, I don't know, she's earning more than me, and I'm a surgeon, and 1950s, 1960s politics going on, like domestic politics. And so yeah, it's just adorable. But I think loads of Doris Day films are lovely. So
this is true. Yes, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, in terms of Moonstruck, this is sort of atypical as a quote unquote Oscar film, isn't it? In that it is essentially a romantic comedy. There's no, it's not set against the backdrop of any major world conflict. No one has a terminal illness. It's
No, nobody except possibly Cage, but nothing that's outwardly described.
yeah, there's something wrong with
Nothing
him.
nothing official, like lycanthropy, possibly. I'm gonna have to take it.
Yeah, there is no diagnosis. Let's say that.
Yes, and we find him in this one with one hand.
He has one hand. He gets very angry about bread.
And also everything, pretty angry.
And everything.
Yeah, he just goes 0 to 50 million in 0.6 of a second, whatever he's talking about in this film.
The weirdest thing is, I mean, you can say that about a lot of Nicolas Cage films, and part of the sort of the semi-ironic online cult of Nicolas Cage started, in my recollection, when people started splicing together compilations of him losing his shit in all manner of different films. And when I was going through it, I thought, although these outbursts are very big, they're very maximalist acting, but they're not Vampire's Kiss, are they? They're not like absolutely insane Cage rage. It still just about fits within a light comedy.
I haven't seen Vampire's Kiss. Who's in that? Who's he exploding at in that?
Oh, I have no idea. I must admit, I've never seen Vampire's Kiss, but I've seen the famous clip of him like offloading on a secretary who cannot file correctly.
Oh
And then bang! I'm pretty sure that's Vampire's Kiss. It's like Nicolas Cage,
gigantic acting,
nursery teacher.
Okay, fair enough. Oh, it's such a treat. Well, yes. I mean, we see, within the first 5 minutes, we noticed that the Cher character is going to go on a slight journey as well. I felt quite conflicted during this because her sort of change seemed so rapid.
Yeah, and it's entirely hair dye based, isn't it?
Yeah, there's obviously the transformation scene, which you're going to get in any 80s film featuring any woman doing anything. So yes, she's I mean, it's Cher and she's a goddess. And but you first see her and she's dowdy and plain, and there's a lot of beige going on, and she's got grey in her hair, and she just pulls it back and it's all plain. She works in a funeral parlor behind a desk, not even one of the interesting roles in a funeral parlor.
Yes.
And you're thinking, that's Cher. But in the very similar way to all Hollywood films, they've made her dowdy and plain, but it's still Cher. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
she's still an absolute goddess.
On paper, you would look at this film and the capsule summary is Cher plays a dowdy middle-aged woman whose life is revitalized when she meets sex god Nicolas Cage. And you think, whoa, hold on, I'm still objecting to the first characterization. You don't throw another one at me.
Yes, steady on.
But weirdly, it works. I was trying to think what worked about that characterization. I think one of the strange things about it, which they can't possibly have known when it was in production, but that grey in Cher's hair, because she's never had that in real life, she's always dyed it. That weirdly makes her completely plausible as someone other than Cher.
Yeah, I mean, they've worked on it to make her look like that. They've very much downplayed the makeup and made ill-fitting, unshapely clothes for her, and a very bland wardrobe. And then somehow she's going out with Danny Aiello.
I mean, it sounds weird.
How is she going out with him?
In a strange way, I ship it.
He was also a little tidbit. If you've ever seen the Papa Don't Preach video with Madonna, he plays the dad who's like, I've made up my mind, I'm keeping my baby, and he's just like, you're my daughter, you're not my daughter anymore, or whatever. Typical dad reaction. So yes, that's Danny Aiello.
That's interesting, that, because Madonna obviously has her roots in that kind of Italian, New York Catholic
Sure.
upbringing, but she became universal very quickly. Nowadays, Madonna's background is Madonna. She is just Madonna, and no cultural context matters. This takes a woman who, I mean, Cher's actual background. Her father was Armenian. Her mother had various kind of Irish and Cherokee racial backgrounds. But back in the 60s, her niche was just exotic, wasn't it?
Exotic,
That was
without going into all that detail.
Yeah.
And she sort of, I think, played on that with hits like Gypsies, Tramps and Thieves. And
absolutely, yeah.
And sort of being on a part of the subculture at the time of hippies and whatnot. So yeah, exotic is, and she looks so glamorous. Oh my God, if you've seen some of her old programs and Cher specials and the Cher Show and all this business and Sonny and Cher Show, and she just looked absolutely stunning. I mean, she's just beautiful looking.
We should double back and talk about the origins of Cher's career, because she has been Cher at maximum Cherosity for so long that
yes,
it can be quite difficult to double back and think, oh yeah, originally her gimmick was, she was one half of a married couple, and that was it. They were the singing couple.
And somehow she was going out with Sonny Bono,
which is
again.
Yeah, makes Danny Aiello seem normal.
I know. But yeah, and started so many parodies as well.
What's your favourite Sonny and Cher joke? Because my absolute favourite is that one on The Simpsons where someone wakes up from 25-year coma. Germain to this podcast, actually, because he says, Sonny and Cher still have that dumb TV show, and Kent Brockman goes, no, she has an Oscar and he's a senator. And the guy just goes, good night, and lapses back into the coma straight away.
Yeah, he sort of followed the very sort of well-trodden path nowadays of somebody who's famous in entertainment then going to become governor of California.
Yes,
it's kind of a well-worn cliche, if you like, now.
When you look back on it, even though that was her inaugural point, that is quite a weird pairing, and I can't quite work out how much their appeal back then was chalk and cheese, because with the best will in the world, he always looked like someone who was going to end up being a Republican senator.
Yeah, he looked like, to me, he looked like Gomez Adams, and I used to confuse the two.
Oh man, if they made an Addams Family movie back in the 60s, you could not better that for casting, couldn't you?
Apart from the guy who did play Gomez, whose name I've forgotten. What's he called?
It was Raul Julia in the 90s.
No, the previous guy.
Oh, of course, there was a TV series.
Yeah, but Raul Julia was excellent as Gomez Adams. What a lovely performance that was. Let me see if I can find out who did Gomez Adams. That's him. Oh yeah. Where is he? John Astin.
Oh right.
And I think Sean Astin is a thing now, who is his grandson, I guess.
And also an actor. Now, Sean Astin's been going for yonks, hasn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
I remember him in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and he wasn't a fresh face back then.
No, I think he did. Yeah, he was doing sort of coming to the fore probably in the 90s, I guess.
I think so.
But that's now in my head. There's some problems with time dilation at times. So getting back to Moonstruck.
Moonstruck, yeah, which, I mean, we've mentioned its Italian-American setting. I have to say, opening your film with Amore by Dean Martin is not the subtlest way of establishing the kind of cultural environment that you're setting this
exactly. It plonks you straight in. It's a very quick entry into that world. And I suppose it does some of the work for you in
Mm.
trying to accept that Cher is now Italian American
Yeah.
and somehow going out with Danny Aiello. I think there's, I mean, she was older than Nicolas Cage as well in the movie. Still looks fabulous, obviously, because it's Cher. But how old was? Let me see. So I think there's like a 14-year age difference between the two in this movie, but they still look great together.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this when we were watching it, actually. The fact that in Hollywood, it seems to be a trope where it's normal for an older guy to be with a younger woman. Like, that's kind of normal in all the 1940s movies and so on. And then in this, you get a repeating vignette of there's a guy with a girlfriend who's too young for him, and she just obviously throws a drink over him regularly and nicks off.
And it's John Mahoney, right? It's John
and it's
Mahoney.
John Mahoney.
Yeah.
Yeah, from Frasier.
Love that guy.
Yeah, lovely guy. So it got us thinking about why that's such a thing. Is that like an ego massaging thing, or is it, was that genuinely couples at the time? I don't feel like it was. I think it was just like a Hollywood thing of plonking, making older actors look young or vital or interesting or...
Oh yeah, there's definitely the cultural double standard, isn't there, where as men age they become craggy and interesting and distinguished, whereas as women get older they just become unfuckable, don't they? That's kind of the
exactly.
Yeah.
And there's the great sketch actually by Amy Schumann, Your Last Fuckable Day.
Yes,
seen
it.
Yeah. With Tina Fey and Amy Poehler's in it as well. And it's really a huge thing. And do we think there's any inroads being made there now?
I think people call it out more, but there are sometimes. I mean, I don't know if you've been following the production of this Napoleon biopic that Ridley Scott's trying to get off the ground, where he's had this rotating door of Josephine's. It's always been Joaquin Phoenix as Napoleon, which, as casting, I dig that.
Yep. Makes sense.
But every single woman he's had in playing Josephine has been like 10, 15 years younger than him, even though in real life, Josephine was 6 years older than Napoleon. So...
Yeah. How old is Joaquin Phoenix?
I think he's in his sort of mid-40s now. So depending on, I don't know, it's almost certainly too old for the time period they're going to cover, but hey-yo.
So what maybe Kate Blanchett or somebody like that would realistically play Josephine, possibly?
Yeah, or you could sort of make it ridiculous in the opposite direction and cast Cher. I would back that. I think that would be great.
Well, she's finished doing the ABBA musical now, so yes, she's probably available. Honestly, that when she just turns up, and it's such a huge moment when she turns up at the end of the ABBA musical, and you just, it's so like, it's obviously loads of soft focus, and it's almost like a dream sequence when she appears. And Angie Garcia's going, oh, here's the love of my life, and she's miraculously turned up on this island. And she turns up just like, oh, I'm fucking sure. And it's just like this great moment. She just exudes that star quality.
Now, Mark Harrison and I did Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again on this podcast, and one of the things that struck me about that entrance, like I say, she gets out of a helicopter, which is, it's not how characters in Ken Loach films tend to enter the frame.
I mean, Ken Loach could learn from that.
Yeah,
I think he's missing a trick.
I have never seen Paddy Considine enter from a helicopter in a movie.
Well, I mean, he could do something similar, but obviously it's slightly lower budget, just like an Arriva.
Yes, I've seen Paddy Considine get out of an Uber, but a really nice one, a good car.
A really good
car. But yeah, and it struck us both that dramatic contrast to Moonstruck, where we've just been talking about how believable she is as this kind of down at heel, past her best woman.
Mm.
That is the only way you can deal with Cher in a movie now, isn't it? You have to make her appearance a massive gala appearance because she
Absolutely.
cannot be anything else other than a superstar at this stage.
Yeah, and I think she absolutely excels doing that as well. If you think back to all her videos, like the standout ones are the ones where she's astride a giant gun on the front of a warship and wearing what's basically a mankini, but
That
with
was,
lace.
I remember that was one of the first music videos directed by Sigmund Freud, wasn't it?
Yes, in his later career, yes, it was. Yeah. So yes, I would definitely agree with that. Did you spot Olympia Dukakis as well?
I didn't. I saw that she was in it, but I
Yeah.
think
She's
I
like
am
the
too.
mom.
She's what? Sorry?
She's the mom
Oh, right,
of
right.
the
Yeah,
family.
yeah.
And I remember her from Steel Magnolias, so I have a particular fondness for her because that's such a lovely. It's a lovely play, and it was a lovely film as well. They really made a lot more of it than you can. You've seen films yourself that have been plays, and they just have this static feeling about it. But they
Yeah.
did more with it, and it was a lovely film. And obviously, you've got Parton is in there as well, and who else is in it? Julia Roberts, Daryl Hannah, Shirley MacLaine
I love Shirley MacLaine.
as Weezer. Oh, fabulous! It's such a great cast, and Olympia Dukakis is just very sarcastic,
Yeah.
sitting there in the background. And it's set in like a hairdressing salon, and it's like women sort of chatting and women's issues and blah blah blah, and marriage and kids and health and whatever. And I remember Olympia Dukakis, sort of one of her lines was, I always say, if you've got nothing good to say, come sit by me. And it's just full of great one-liners. Robert Harling wrote the play, and a lot of his dialogue was just transposed identically into the film. So
Well,
yeah, well worth a watch. It's a fabulous film.
while we're talking about playwrights, my first big shock when I sat down to watch Moonstruck, having, I say, not really known much about this film before, certainly never seen it before, is that it's written by John Patrick Shanley.
Yeah. Who I don't know. Remind me.
Well, John Patrick Shanley has an odd career. He's one of those people where in theatre he is very well regarded, and if you spoke to
Yeah.
theatre people about him, you would say, "Oh no, yeah, he's a really great American playwright, a great sort of comic
He looks like a
writer."
priest.
Sorry.
He looks like a guest star on Father Ted.
Well, he wrote Doubt, which was he later directed as a film with
Oh,
Meryl
wow.
Streep and Philip Seymour Hoffman. But his
Yeah.
film career, in contrast to his stage career, has been this series of bizarre ups and downs. Obviously, this is an up. This is a very high point. After
Yeah.
this, he wrote and directed Joe versus the Volcano, which people really
Tom
like now,
Hanks.
but at the time,
No,
boom, it really did not
really.
work for people at the time.
Yeah.
And then there's
I
his latest
can't remember
film.
it. I don't know whether I've seen that or I can remember it. I can remember the front cover of the VHS video. Joe versus the Volcano with Tom Hanks. Who else was in that with Tom Hanks? Was it Meg
I think
Ryan?
that might have been a Meg Ryan one. Yeah,
I
I
know,
suppose
yeah.
it is kind of telling that that's how badly Joe versus the Volcano flopped. That about 3 years later, Sleepless in Seattle came out, and everyone was like, Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. Who knew that would be such a great screen couple? And John Patrick Shanley was just sat there thinking, where am I in all this? What?
Defiance. He wrote Defiance as well. So is that the Jewish one? Am I right thinking that's the
That's
Jewish
what I
tale?
would think of the Daniel Craig film.
Let me just see. Oh no, I've got the wrong one. What am I
Entirely
thinking of?
different Defiance.
Yeah. Oh no.
Oh no.
No, I'm not. That's not the one I'm thinking of. What am I thinking of then?
I thought when you said,
Rachel Weisz film with another woman, and the other woman is sort of a really orthodox Jew,
oh,
and they sort of fall in love. And I can't remember what it was called. I thought it was something like Defiance.
it probably, yeah, I know exactly the film that you're talking about now. It's the Sebastian Lello film where is it Rob and Mick watched it for Cinema Eclectica, and I think they came away with a slightly less positive view of it than you did.
Yeah, it was all right. Disobedience, that's it. Yeah, it was quite a muted thing. I felt like it was a bit. It was all right. I mean, it was nice, nice to sort of explore that sort of clash of cultures, but it was a bit slow.
Yeah.
There it is, Joe versus the volcano.
Joe versus the
volcano. And also, who could forget, we're back, a dinosaur story.
I mean, this is what I mean. I'd forgot how mad his screenwriting career is. He wrote Congo.
Wow.
Whoa. Congo is one of those like mid-90s blockbusters, which is just the sort of like Species. It's the sort of thing Roger Corman would have done in a sensible movie environment, but now it's being made for millions and millions of dollars, and it has this insane pick and mix cast of like slumming it character actors.
Laura Linney, Dylan Walsh, Annie Hudson.
A movie about an animatronic gorilla should not have Laura Linney in it, shouldn't it?
No, it really shouldn't. But it's based on a Michael Crichton novel. Maybe that's what got her to sign.
I think that's probably it. Around that time, Michael Crichton's post-it notes could get a Hollywood deal.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he did Jurassic Park, therefore.
Yeah.
Not every hit is out of the park.
What I was going to ask you about John Patrick Shanley was, have you heard anything about his most recent film, Wild Mountain Thyme?
Just the title. I know nothing else about it.
It is based on a play he wrote called Outside Mullingar, which, again, got pretty good reviews when it came out. I can only assume that its sort of whimsical folkiness played a lot better in the more artificial medium of theatre, because Wild Mountain Thyme as a film became immediately notorious for two things. One, it has an old Irish dad played by that classic Irish thespian Christopher Walken. You imagine Christopher Walken doing an Irish accent and it sounds exactly as mad as you think.
Oh, I can't wait to see that. I'd watch anything with him in, so yeah.
Well, maybe you'll want to close your ears when I tell you the other thing that I heard about it, because this is the ending of the film.
Right.
Do you want me to go ahead with this?
Yeah. Spoiler, #spoilers, but yes, absolutely.
There is a lot of intrigue about why Jamie Dornan's character says he can't be with Emily Blunt's character throughout the film. And it turns out that it is because he thinks he is a bee.
I'm sorry, what?
The connection did not go out at any point during that sentence.
He thinks he's a bee. Oh, just a bee.
He thinks he's just a bee.
Okay. Okay. So yes, not a beekeeper.
Not a beekeeper, no.
Beelzebub infatuant, not a being and nothingness fan.
Not a Beyonce super
fan. Not a Beyonce super fan.
Just a bee. Just a bee.
Just a bee. I mean, honestly, not since the 50s. What's the fascination with bees? Haven't we talked about this before? Like, what's the 1950s fascination with? It's like an insect becoming huge, but it happens to be a bee. Like in lots of occasions, it's always a bee. Why isn't it an earwig? Why isn't it a? Oh, well, sometimes it is an ant, isn't it? Like soldier ants or fire
Yeah.
ants.
Or a fly, like in that classic
The
50s
fly.
movie. What's it called? The one with the fly on the
Oh, this
waterfront.
guy.
That was it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, but it seems to be like there's a fascination with body horror stuff, and it's a bee and a sci-fi connection with some. I don't know why people are so fascinated with bees and monstrous bees and humans interacting with bees, turning into bees, or otherwise sort of melding with bees.
I've got to admit, as a man who has a letterboxed list of movies about bees, even I did not rush out and see Wild Mountain Thyme.
Oh, okay. Well, I have a thing about about Jamie Dornan, though. I do not like him, and it's nothing. You know, when you just don't know why you don't like somebody, and it's for him. He just makes me cold. And the only thing I can put it down to is The Fall, because he was being harmful to what's she called? Oh,
Gillian Anderson.
Gillian Anderson, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was being very threatening to her, and also wrecking her career and so on. And that's just mean to Gillian.
It is quite weird, isn't it, that at the time he had the look to go from that into the only major romantic drama franchise where it helps to have played a misogynistic serial killer beforehand, which is 50 Shades of Grey, of course.
Oh, yeah, of course, yeah. Which I've also not seen.
A friend of mine said that he really wished that when the executives were saying, we should get that guy from The Fall, there'd be a mix-up and they'd get Marky Smith instead.
Oh, please, God. Say that copy exists. Cool. So let's have a look. One thing I did notice about this film was that it doesn't always sort of pursue the plot at the expense of everything else. It's not really plot driven and a big sort of rushing kind of film. There's room for a group of men to chat in Italian. There's room for a guy to take his dogs out. It's not everything that's it's like a couple who pop into a shop, and a person into the shop, and there's a nice couple behind the counter, and that's a nice moment. And there's loads of these kind of nice little moments that do you think that's a thing again from stage to screen? So on the stage you can have nice little moments and you're not in any kind of rush. Do you think the pace is going to be slower? And normally when you move to film, it has to be kind of plot driven and much speedier. Do you think that's a thing? Do you think?
I think there's probably two things going on here. One of them is that maybe Shanley is taking the opportunity of writing a film to have scenes that are not as stringently set up as you would get in a play. The classic example of the difference between theatre and film writing is that a stage play has to open a scene with someone walking in a room, whereas film opens with them already there and talking. And I think I'm glad you brought up that scene about the couple in the liquor store, because that is such a lived-in detail that they're having this sort of weird argument about the wolf or something with themselves.
Something I can't remember. Yeah,
And then
they're so just sort of they're having this massive argument, and then it just sort of dissolves, and they just realise how daft each other is, and it's just a really sweet moment to end on.
I mean, I think it adds to the romantic tone of the film, but it's not, as you say, it's not a plot detail, which is good, because I'm sick of films being all about plot.
It is a shame everything to be, sacrificed to that. It's a weird thing, isn't it? Do you feel like as the centuries moved on, that has become the default?
Yeah, I think so. I think part of it is just the way that people encounter films and start to learn about films now is very much driven towards this certain area of criticism, which is about, like, it almost turns it to a video game. Here are the hacks for writing a good screenplay, and when you see
Yeah.
something that doesn't do it, it becomes very easy to say, that's why it's bad, even if it's not actually bad.
Yeah.
But I think maybe what happens to romantic comedies between like this and between when the genre kind of stuttered out a bit in the 2000s, maybe you can see that as a lesson in the dangers of being too plotty, because there is drama in Moonstruck. Cher and Nicolas Cage are mismatched. They do go through some troubles together, but it's not plotty. It's about these characters and their world rather than some big twist that turns it all upside down. Whereas by the early noughties, it felt like every romantic comedy had to be about a journalist trying to win a weird bet by dating someone in a particular way. I can't relate to these freaks. What the hell?
Yeah. What you sort of long for is like, just give me a film that's set in Greenwich Village and that'll be fine.
Yeah.
Or Manchester.
Yeah.
It's a bit more bedded in reality. That'd be good.
Yeah, there aren't many Mancunian rom-coms, aren't there? Danny Boyle's missed a trick there.
Yeah, peculiar. There's some good lines in the film as well.
Great lines.
Such as, he's a wolf who gnawed off his own foot.
There are some good lines and some really weird lines, listeners.
And Cher says, I'm looking where I have to be a wife. So she feels this huge societal pressure to obviously conform to that.
Sorry, carry on. A couple that I liked, the exchange, "You've ruined my life. That's impossible. It was ruined when I got here." But also Mr. Castorini's advice on pipes is a good line. "It costs money because it saves money," which nowadays we refer to as the Vimes' boots paradox, don't we?
Oh, I don't know that.
It's from a Terry Pratchett book. It's from a Terry Pratchett book that there's a character called Vimes who is poor but spends more on boots than a rich person, because the rich person buys boots that are very expensive and excellently made and last for years, whereas Vimes can only afford to buy very cheap pairs of boots, which then wear out very quickly, meaning that his total expenses over the years are actually more than the rich man's. This has been in the news recently because it's called Jack Monroe has tried to get a change to the way that people calculate interest rates based on this notion of how an ordinary family who need to replace things might experience this.
I didn't know that. I think she was in the news yesterday for something, and I can't remember what it was now. Was that it?
It might have been this. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Do you know which Terry Pratchett novel?
I don't know. I should Google this for the interest of our readers. Sam Vimes' Theory of Economic Injustice is what it's also. Menace Arms, it's from one of the Discworld novels. Yes, and
I read the first three.
The Pratchett estate has authorised the Vimes' Boots Index as a phrase that can be used when calculating the effect of poverty on interest price increases.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm sure he would approve as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is not a hot take, but what a guy.
Yeah, Graham's hot takes.
Yes.
Another moment from the film, getting completely back into the film, that bit where he just throws the table aside and kisses Cher.
Yeah.
that's an iconic moment, and that's a moment that kind of feels more old-fashioned, not from the 80s, but something maybe from the 40s or something.
It's a very only in the movies moment. Like I think people who dislike romantic comedies, and I'm not a huge fan of them, but every now and then I see one that makes me think, oh yeah, this is what the genre is like when it works. But people who have this kind of sneery attitude from them are like, in real life, if somebody tipped my table over, I'd be telling them to pick the table back up and clean up. It's like, yeah, it's okay. We know. It's like,
yeah, but Nicolas Cage.
yeah, exactly. He was gorgeous at this point, wasn't he? It's quite odd to think about now, but he really was.
And quite wolf-like as well, appropriately wolf-like. I probably did some undercover preparation work as a wolf in the California bush to just prepare for that, I'm guessing.
I guarantee you that's what he would have done, yes.
Yeah, okay. What else? Oh yeah, there's this running thing about La Boheme.
Oh yeah, which is another great line actually. When Cher goes out to the opera and her mind is just blown by it and says she was coughing her brains out, but she kept singing.
Yeah. In classic opera fashion. And of course that's when they find out that their dad is having an affair, like her dad is having an affair with a younger, more glamorous woman. And they sort of have to come to terms with it a little bit, because they're both in a position where they're doing something sort of not,
neither of them has the moral high ground.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's a bit of an interesting scene, that. But yeah, I mean, overall, do you think it stands up today still, this film?
I think it does, yeah. Like, I think when you watch anything from like the 20th century as a whole now, I expect it to be dated in some ways. The only difference is, am I thinking, oh God, that's dated? Or am I thinking, oh, which films were like that still? And this is very much on the, I wish they still made films like that end of the spectrum, I think.
Yeah, it reminded me of something, like I say, that from a much earlier period, like a screwball comedy type black and white thing, maybe.
Yeah, it definitely has a screwball vibe.
And it is sweet, and everything sort of works out quite neatly and mathematically. I'm not so sure it still works. I think maybe too much. I think maybe it is of its time. It's it's sweet in many ways, but and obviously Cher. But I Cher. But I don't think I could give it more than 3 stars, honestly. Would you give it more?
Yeah, I'd give it more. I thought it's in a genre that I do not normally go out of my way to watch, and it just breezed by. There's loads of funny lines, and John Mahoney's in it, and you can't. Sometimes you can't really ask for more than that, can you?
Well, I didn't like the dad character. Thought the slamming of the table and the like throwing his weight around and being a knob generally.
But they're movie Italians, Sarah. This is just how movie Italians
etc. Yeah, pizza. Yeah, spot on.
Was that Jared Leto's performance in House of Gucci that you were doing there?
Yes, it was. How did you know? And it's just like when his dad, and what's his job? Oh, he's a plumber. It's like, all right, Mario, come on. I mean, where do you draw your inspiration from? Who knows? Who dares to dream these things? But yeah, I've written down stereotypical Italians and classic gender stereotypes, because that, I wondered if like 1980s films were probably drawn in broader character strokes, and maybe now we have more fine tuning. And I think that's generally, I would say that's true.
I would say yes, definitely. But at the same time, you think people worship 80s films, really, don't they? And I always find it I always find it very strange when I see someone who's progressive in a lot of other ways, and they like just have this obsession with how things were back in the 80s. It's the first warning sign of early onset Hadley Freeman, in my opinion.
Do you know, I haven't heard anything from her in ages.
Oh, she was writing for Unheard about how all young people are thick the other day. Yeah. This must be the civil debate that they're always telling us to have.
Okay. How old is she now? She must have reached that age, I guess.
90.
Kids.
Or maybe she just acts it.
I think we have a lot to learn from children. And I think, you know, everybody is valid. Everybody has their own interesting opinions. I think everybody can teach us something. And I think that is a giant mistake, a giant sweeping mistake, but not the first.
But it's just all nostalgia based in her case, isn't it? It's like, I remember she wrote a whole column about how millennials didn't understand how literature works because they didn't like Bridget Jones's Diary. And you think, Jesus Christ, at least pick Anna Karenina or something.
Yeah.
Rather.
Yeah, you're falling into your own trap there, surely.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, bizarre. But yeah, I felt very positive towards this film, even if, as I say, the impression it left me was more, well, that was nice, rather than that was brilliant, and I must get on the podcast and discuss the many fascinating angles that it thought that it's took me on, because there weren't any other than, yep, that was really nice.
Yeah, I thought it was a good sort of ensemble piece. I think maybe the male characters seem to be better drawn or more detailed or more convincing, maybe. But then again, I don't know, how does you get, I don't know whether it's to do with the gender of the writer, possibly. But then you've got Robert Harling, who's really good with all his characterizations in Steel Magnolias. It's just the sweetest thing ever.
Tricky, yeah, but it's a nice spot to leave for the time being, to leave our examination of Cher, because we have done 2 Cher-centric episodes. We've done Mamma Mia 2 and we have done Burlesque, both of which are from the you cannot be anything other than Cher era. So it's nice to be reminded that in the 1980s, she was not just a star, she was an actual proper actress who you could, and people did, put in films opposite Meryl Streep, and it worked.
Yeah, and she is good. I mean, she was really good in...
She was in Mask, which...
Yes!
Yeah.
Oh my God, I wept my eyeballs out when I saw that. She was really good in that. What's that one with Jack Nicholson? The Witches of Eastwick.
Yes.
That's a great film. That was a great film. I really enjoyed it at the time. Mind you, I haven't revisited it, so you know,
I'm sure there are many things in an 80s Battle of the Sexes comedy starring Jack Nicholson that have not aged well. But I will note
there's some bits of it that are so good and so spot on, though.
Yeah.
So spot on.
We mentioned Mask there. Something I found out that was interesting. Cher won Best Actress at the Cannes Film Festival for Mask, and that was, I think, 2 years before she won Best Actress at the Oscars for Moonstruck. I mean, there are a lot of people who win an award at Cannes before they're on the Oscars radar. It feels very weird that Cher is one of them, right?
Yeah, I think so, but we don't know what kind of campaign was run to enable that to have the best chance, shall we say.
I suppose, yeah, it's a possibility that, you know, she fared better in Cannes because people in France did not have the memories of her being a sort of TV star and appearing on Scooby-Doo as she did.
Did she?
She did, yeah.
Did not know that.
Yes.
Wow. What a ledge. In the 80s, when she was in films, we were sort of aware of the fact that she had a music career, but we weren't there at the time.
Yeah.
And so it was nice to sort of see her doing something different, and it without having that really front and center. I could,
It doesn't hang over it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It doesn't sort of interfere, and you can take her at face value as an actor, which she accomplished really well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we're talking about Cher's legacy, we've talked about her music, we've talked about her acting, but I think the one thing that has to be brought up before the end of the podcast is her Twitter feed.
Yes. Yeah, she does sometimes go off on one on Twitter. Yeah, but it's always entertaining.
I think she is the only celebrity who regularly goes off on one on Twitter, and those occasions make you think more highly of her.
Yeah,
rather than in the exact opposite direction.
some of it is so sort of pedestrian and everyday and normal, though. Like, it's not like giant iconic star Cher. It's just like almost like, somebody would write a shopping list or something. It's there's some very ordinary stuff on there, but yeah, very worth reading and following.
She loves emojis. My God, she loves emojis.
Yeah. Do you think she understands emojis?
I don't know. It's
As
possible
a great grandma.
they're just decorative at this point, aren't they? They're just
Mhm.
like punctuation.
Yeah.
I think that's part of why that Twitter feed has become such a cult thing, is because there are so many celebrities on Twitter who are very well behaved and very dull, but you look at that and you think, yeah, that's Cher. No PR team is putting that many emojis in one tweet.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely her. And there's no censoring really that goes on there. It's just straight from the horse's mouth, as it were.
So, anything else to note about Moonstruck before we move on?
No, some good bits.
Yeah.
And just sort of, not particularly challenging, but yeah.
I'd like to say it's nice. I hope everyone
It is nice.
appreciates that.
Pretty nice, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you enjoyed that level of analysis, there's more pop screen available on our Patreon at
That's nice.
www.patreon.com/The Geek Show. You can also find us on social media, where we are always at TGS_The Geek Show. But until next week, I've been Graham.
And I've been Sarah. Bye.